Hello, I'm Jamila Musayeva, an international etiquette consultant, author of etiquette books and pre-recorded online courses. In today's video, I'm going to talk about 7 etiquette rules that no longer make sense. They're not really relevant in today's world. So the very first rule that makes no sense in today's modern world is that women should not be seen in the restaurant alone after 7 p.m. This was a rule in the early 19th and 20th century that demanded that women of a good morality and of a certain class and a good reputation would not be seen ever alone in a restaurant after 7 p.m. This was because a lot of the public venues, a lot of the restaurants would engage in these unelegant activities after that time. So gambling, drinking, prostitution, it would all happen when the sun has set. And so if any woman was seen alone in a public venue after 7 p.m., she would be immediately associated with lack of morality, poor reputation, lack of protection. She didn't have anyone to take care of her. So this was seen as something immoral in a way, or something that would damage your reputation. You can see how irrelevant and how stupid this rule sounds these days, and that is because the societal norms and the rules have evolved so much that these things sound completely crazy to us these days. And when teaching etiquette, I always say that etiquette reflects the norms and the rules of the society that we live in. And so a lot of rules have been outdated. They no longer make sense, and hence we have to get rid of them, and instead the new rules are written. So just to give you an example, netiquette or online etiquette did not exist until online was a thing. So as such, a lot of the old things that no longer serve the purpose of being, they get overruled, and the new rules and norms take place. And so etiquette is there to teach you what the new rules are all about. The second rule that I would say has a certain part of it that still is true, and the other part of it is really not sensible these days, is that no elbows at the table, which is still true for formal settings especially. And then the second part would say no elbows at the table for women that are not married or that haven't reached of age, and that would be usually age of 30, 35. So if you were a woman of an age, or if you were a married woman, you were allowed, especially in France, to place your elbows on the table so that you can showcase your beautiful jewelry on your hands, your wrists, and your fingers. Now you can see how absurd and irrelevant this rule in today's world sounds. If women were allowed to showcase their jewelry, why not all women? But back in the days, the rule was that only women of certain age and only married women could do so. Younger ladies below the age of 30 and single would never be allowed to place their elbows at the table. The reason this rule doesn't make any sense is because why would we discriminate certain kind of women against others? So obviously it makes no sense. If everyone is allowed to place their elbows, if certain women are allowed to place their elbows on a table, why not everyone? So the rule in general applies to all genders. So no elbows at the table at a formal dinner setup, and that is because we have a certain table setup per person. The place is limited. Putting your elbows, again, can cause discomfort, can, maybe derange some things at a table setup. Then by placing your elbows at a table, you occupy more space, leaving less space to your neighbors. Also because when we put our elbows at a table, our posture changes. We start slouching over the table. So in order to have a good posture, we would try to keep our elbows away from the table. But again, if this is a casual setting with friends and you're, with your family, or once the meals have been served, then it's okay to place your elbows at the table. The third rule that I stumbled upon reading one of the older etiquette book editions, and that reminded me a little bit of my childhood, is that no children under the age of 14 were allowed to be seated at the table with adults, or no children before they reached the teenagerhood were allowed to be seated at a table with adults. Actually, reflecting on my childhood, would usually have a table just for children, and adults would be seated separately. Again, as we started growing up, obviously we were incorporated into adults table quite early on, maybe not until the 14, maybe at the age of 10, 11, once we learned the table manners. But it was interesting to read that that was the rule back in the days. And the reason it was the rule is because children lack table manners. Also, Children will not be allowed at adults' table because not because they only lack the manners, but also because adults would be having conversations about certain topics that children should not be listening to. You can see how irrelevant that rule is in today's world. You would not expect anyone to place children at a separate table and then adults at a separate table. Now we're all mix and mingle. But I would tell you this, there are certain restaurants abroad, especially high-end restaurants, where they would not allow children below the age of 7 or below the age of 10 to be, seated or to be, allowed into the restaurant. And that's usually this high-end restaurant where, people come for this calm environment. They want to enjoy their food in quietness and peace. And also the table or the manners that are required in these restaurants are usually very formal. Hence, kids or children would not be allowed in these venues. So maybe this is a vestige of the rules that existed many, many years ago. But in today's world, again, for the general public and, for family celebrations or family occasions, you will not see this rule applicable or relevant anymore because children and adults get to be seated together. Another rule that has, unfortunately, for me personally, lost its relevance in today's world, and that is men should carry a handkerchief with them at all times. This was a symbol of refinement, of class, of chivalry. The idea was that if a man has a handkerchief, he can always offer it to the lady in case she needs to, cough, sneeze, wipe her tears, hopefully from joy, never sadness. And you can see how nowadays it sounds absurd, or no one would actually be fine with taking anyone's handkerchief for the purposes of hygiene, and you could never really see a man who would offer you a handkerchief these days, maybe a tissue box for the best. But this was the rule in the early 80s and 19th century, and this was a staple look for a man to always have a handkerchief by him in order to show that he is always prepared to serve, that he is always prepared to take care of a woman. And interesting that that handkerchief or that accessory still remains to be a part of a style in today's world. So you'll see that for formal dress codes, like for a black tie event, there will be like a breast pocket. Well, you'll see a tiny bit of handkerchief there, but that is only for the style purpose. It's not really for the use. The handkerchief that would be lent to a woman, that would be used, would be the one that you place inside the jacket. And men took care of their handkerchiefs. They would have embroidery on it with their initials. So this was not just something that would be an accessory. This would be an accessory with a class, with a certain refinement that would be personalized for each man. So again, this is something that no longer serves the purpose that it used to serve, and this rule no longer makes much sense in today's world. Though you might see some men from older generation that have always handkerchief with them. Actually, my dad always has a handkerchief with him. Again, not super classy, but just the one in his jeans or pocket. But it's something that he carries with him. And I remember I was doing this video etiquette review for Robert De Niro's movie Intern. And there, in this really interesting episode, he explains to the young guy intern, what a handkerchief is and what it was used to do. If you haven't watched that movie, make sure that you do. It's a really lovely one. And I've done an entire etiquette review for that movie on my Patreon Etiquette Movie Club. If you're not part of it, I invite you to join and you can look at that etiquette analysis. The next rule is about an accessory for women that they had to wear for formal events, and that was a must, that women had to wear gloves for formal events. Again, this had a purpose of showing a class, a sort of grace, elegance, as well as it served hygienic purposes. And of course, over the years, this wardrobe item has lost its importance, so to speak, its relevance. There is still a dress code that's the most formal one, called white tie, where women are expected to wear gloves about their elbows, and many women choose to do so. You can see a lot of royal family members and a lot of head officials of countries. When there is a white tie event, they would wear a glove, but again, it's not a must as it used to be. Though I really find it a beautiful accessory to, elevate the entire look. The two cases where women were expected to take off their gloves were if they were eating or if they were entering a church. Women could remain in their gloves when shaking, but handshaking was not a thing before. It was more offering their hand for a hand kiss back in the days. If the relationship was not too close, they would still have their gloves on while offering their hand for a hand kiss. Again, if they wanted to show their respect to the person, or if this was a person of a higher authority that they were greeting, they'd always remove the glove. So women wearing gloves for formal events is something that is an optional thing these days. Only certain women of certain class that are attending this white tie event might find the need to wear it, but again, it's not as strict as it used to be. Maybe for the better, because we used to have to wear corsets that we got rid of, then gloves that we're getting rid of already as well. And so you can see, if you're looking at the etiquette norms, how they reflect the changes that are happening in fashion and history, and again, always reflecting the societal norms. Continuing on the topic of accessorize and wardrobe and makeup for women, another rule that was in place was that red lipstick or any bright color lipstick and diamonds should only be worn after sunset. So when the evening there's a candlelight that allows your bright lipstick to shine, allows your diamonds to shine. So these sparkly things or these bright things were meant to be only worn when it's evening time and not daytime. You can see how now this rule just doesn't make any sense anymore, because we see women wear all kind of makeup, all kind of accessories throughout the whole day. And so now this rule is only perhaps reserved for certain class of families, like maybe the royal family still continues to carry on this rule, but otherwise for the general public this rule no longer makes sense. And the last rule for today's video is that men should always stand up when a lady enters the room. This used to be a strict rule, no matter the age of the woman, the status of a woman, no matter what the relationship was. As soon as a lady enters the room, the man had to stand up. You can see how now perhaps some women might be offended if that's the case. Some men would not be wanting to stand up every time a lady enters the room. It could get exhausting if you work in a company with 10 women and you're the only guy. You have to stand up every time a woman enters the room. So now obviously these rules are more relaxed, they're more lenient. Some men still do so, others decide not to do so. Again, it's something that not everyone abides by, and that's completely okay. The only vestige of this rule is that standing up to greet people is a sign of respect. So men used to stand up to show respect to a lady. Nowadays, we demand that respect, especially in business etiquette, and that has nothing to do with a gender. It has to do with your status, your hierarchy in the company. Once a person senior to you enters the room, you have to stand up. This is particularly important when you are working with companies based in Middle East and Asia. The hierarchy is very much respected, and showing that respect by standing up, rising up on your feet, greeting the person who is older to you, who has higher social status or higher ranking in the company than you, is important, so that you can show how much you respect them. I would actually say that this is important not just to show to the people that are higher than you, but no matter where you are, if you want to greet someone, if you want to show that person that you have seen them, you've noticed them, you want to show them that extra respect, then stand up to greet. This is an important part of body language and establishing that rapport, establishing that good first impression is when you stand up to greet, you stand up to make an introduction. If there's nothing obstructing your way, then always make that extra effort. Thank you so much for watching this video until the very end. I hope that you enjoyed it. Do let me know down in the comment section below what are some other rules that you think are no longer relevant and why. And also, I'm always open to your video suggestions. So if you're still with me on this video, I want to tell you that I have 2 pre-recorded online courses on etiquette. One is called The Art of Entertaining at Home, and the other is Western Formal Dining Etiquette from A to Z. These pre-recorded courses mean that you can buy them and watch them at your own time, anywhere from the world, at your own leisurely pace if you wish. And I also have a Patreon etiquette movie club where every month I publish etiquette movie analysis. And so far I've done over 40 different movie analysis, and by joining it now you can see all these movie analysis. They're only exclusively available for my patrons. And if you're still with me, I'll show you the outfit for today's video. For this video I wanted to wear something super comfortable but yet elegant, and I've opted for this really one of my favorite colors, purple silk dress from a brand called Massimo Dutti. I have paired them with the white heels from Prada. These are, I think, heels that I bought maybe, I want to say might be 7-8 years ago. I don't know if they're still making them, but I love them. They're super comfortable. And I also decided to pair them with these beautiful jewelry that was gifted to me by a brand called Elas. These are pearl studs with diamonds, as well as this pearl wave necklace with a pearl and with diamonds. I think it looks really well with this color of dress, as well it matches well with my shoes. By the way, you can use my code Jamila20 to get 20% off your purchase on Ella's. Thank you so much for watching this video until the very end. I hope to see you next time. Bye!